So let me ask you a quick question. Have you watched Netflix today? Or, maybe you fired up Spotify on your commute, or worked on a document in Google Drive. Well, if you did literally any of those things, you've already interacted with a massive, completely invisible infrastructure that pretty much runs our entire modern world. But honestly, how much do you actually understand about how it all works?
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, our mission is to make the invisible infrastructure of the internet crystal clear. We are going to break down cloud computing right from the ground up, taking you from just an everyday user to someone who truly gets the architecture powering the digital age. It's going to be fun. Here is our quick roadmap for today. 1. You are in the cloud. 2. What is the cloud? 3. The 3 cloud layers. 4. Where the cloud lives. 5. The good and the bad. And finally, 6. The future of storage. Let's dive in.
All right, Section 1. You are in the cloud. Think about the apps you literally use every single day. Netflix streams ridiculously heavy video content all over the globe. Google Drive seamlessly stores and syncs your files across all your devices. Spotify streams high-quality music while analyzing your listening data in real time. And Zoom, it manages high-definition video conferencing for dozens of people at the exact same time. What's absolutely fascinating here is what's missing. To run all of this yourself, you would need massive, incredibly expensive, loudly humming server racks sitting right there in your living room. But you don't have those, right? Every single time you use these apps without local servers, you are instantly relying on the cloud to do all the heavy lifting for you.
Moving right along to Section 2. What is the cloud?
Okay, so here's your foundational definition. At its core, cloud computing is the delivery of computing services, things like storage, servers, databases, networking, and software, completely over the internet. It entirely replaces the need to buy and run these services locally on your own physical hardware. Basically, you are tapping into a massive network of resources that lives somewhere else, accessible to you at the exact speed of your internet connection.
Think of this as a massive paradigm shift from owning to renting. Back in the old model, you had to buy physical hardware, find a physical place to put it, and then manually maintain and upgrade the whole shebang. It was super expensive and really rigid. But the cloud? You're essentially just renting a supercomputer on the internet. It's totally on demand, and there is zero hardware maintenance for you to worry about. If a hard drive breaks on their end, the provider swaps it out. You just keep working like nothing happened.
So why is this renting model such a game changer? Well, it boils down to 5 key features. First, you get on-demand self-service, which means you can spin up resources instantly without ever having to talk to a human being. Then there's pay-as-you-go pricing. You only pay for what you actually use, kind of like your monthly water bill. Scalability and flexibility allows you to crank up the power during a busy season and scale it right back down when things are quiet. Global access lets you manage everything from a coffee shop literally anywhere in the world. And finally, automatic maintenance means the provider handles all those tedious software updates and security patches. For businesses, it's an absolute no-brainer.
Which brings us to Section 3, the 3 cloud layers.
You've probably heard people throwing around acronyms like IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Well, they aren't just corporate jargon. They're actually 3 distinct building blocks, stacked directly on top of one another. And the level you choose depends entirely on how much control you want versus how much convenience you need.
At the very bottom, Step 1, we have Infrastructure as a Service, or IaaS. Think of this as the raw foundation. This is where you're renting the bare metal computing power, virtualized servers, networking, and storage. Huge examples include AWS EC2 or Microsoft Azure virtual machines. Now, you get maximum control here for sure, but you also have to install your own operating systems, manage your own databases, and basically build everything from scratch. It's really meant for the architects.
Now, step up one level to Step 2, and we find Platform as a Service, or PaaS. This is essentially the developer's playground. The cloud provider still gives you the servers and the storage, but they also give you the operating systems and development tools perfectly pre-configured. It completely removes the headache of deep server management, so software developers can just focus on what they do best, writing and deploying code. Heroku and Google App Engine are your classic examples here. You lose a tiny bit of underlying control, but you gain massive development speed.
And finally, at the very top, Step 3 is Software as a Service, or SaaS. This connects right back to the everyday apps we talked about at the very beginning. This is software delivered completely over the internet and fully managed by the provider. You don't manage the servers, you don't manage the platform, you literally just log in and use it. Gmail, Dropbox, Microsoft Office 365.
This is the top layer that pretty much everyone touches and uses every single day.
Section 4. Where the cloud lives.
So, when an organization decides to move to the cloud, they have to choose a deployment model. And there are three main types. The public cloud is a lot like living in an apartment building. You share the underlying infrastructure with multiple other organizations, even though your specific data is totally isolated. This is your AWS or Google Cloud. Then, the private cloud is more like owning a single-family home. The servers are dedicated entirely to one single organization, which gives you maximum control and privacy. And then the hybrid cloud is, well, exactly what it sounds like. It's a flexible mix of both, keeping highly sensitive data private on your own servers while using the public cloud for the really broad, heavy computational tasks.
To truly appreciate how wild this technology is, let's take a super rapid trip through time. Get this, the actual concept of time-sharing computing resources dates all the way back to the 1960s. But the modern cloud era as we know it didn't really ignite until 2006. That's when Amazon Web Services, or AWS, popularized the renting model with its massive, scalable infrastructure. From 2006 to today, the growth has just been explosive. Today, cloud computing outright dominates nearly all modern business and collaborative tasks. I mean, it went from a neat novelty to an absolute global necessity in less than 2 decades.
All right, Section 5, the good and the bad.
Look, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. We've got to objectively weigh the realities here. Now, the benefits are undeniable. Radically lower IT costs up front, insane scalability for startups that might go viral overnight, and built-in backup and disaster recovery. But the challenges are equally real. First, you face genuine security and privacy concerns simply because your data is living on somebody else's servers. You're also vulnerable to downtime outages. I mean, if a major AWS data center goes offline, half the internet can literally go down with it. And then there's vendor lock-in. Once you build your entire company on one provider's specific set of tools, it is incredibly difficult and super expensive to pack up and move everything over to a competitor.
And that brings us to our final part, Section 6, the future of storage.
This brings up something we call the shared responsibility model. Cloud providers spend billions on physical security and network firewalls. Their data centers are literal fortresses. But, and this is a big but, if you leave the digital front door wide open by using weak passwords, failing to use two-factor authentication, or just not encrypting your files, well, that's on you. The infrastructure itself is incredibly secure, but you, the user, still hold massive responsibility for your own data protection practices.
Now, if you're the type of learner who really wants to get their hands dirty right away, here's an exciting and super actionable takeaway for you. The big three providers, AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud Platform, all offer really robust free tiers. You literally don't have to spend a single dime to log in today, spin up a virtual server, deploy a basic web application, and see exactly how this magic works firsthand. Honestly, it is absolutely the best way to learn.
So, does all of this mean the good old local hard drive is totally dead? Well, not quite. Local storage isn't going to completely disappear. For extreme privacy needs, offline work, or doing massive local media editing, hard drives definitely still have a place. However, the battle for modern business operations, that's totally over. Cloud computing has won, and it will definitively continue to dominate collaborative tasks, business infrastructure, and our everyday consumer applications.
We've built the layers from the ground up, we've explored the history, and we've weighed the pros and cons. So, I want to leave you with this provocative question to ponder. Now that you truly understand the invisible infrastructure of the internet, how will you leverage the cloud for your next personal project, your career growth, or your business innovation? The tools are out there, sitting on a server right now, just waiting for you to log in. Thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer, and keep learning.